Did you know that bald eagles have one of the biggest comeback stories ever? If you know of a better one, feel free to mention it in the comments below. But today, as we wander through the Columbus Zoo, I'm going to try to make a case for this awesome comeback. While we don't know exactly how many eagles were here hundreds of years ago, records from our forefathers would indicate that eagles were an avid part of the wildlife here. I mean, while I did find a website that said there were over 100,000 nesting pairs in the late 1800s, I'm not 100% sure you could actually know that back then, but either way, there were lots of them. So if there were lots in the early days of our American history, so much so that it was chosen as our national bird, not just because of the abundance of them, but also because I think the majestic and iconic symbol that it obviously was, as opposed to the turkey. No thank you, Ben Franklin. But anyway, if there were a lot of them from the get-go, then why was there a needed comeback? Well, DDT, which became a widely used pesticide for crops and apparently played a role in reducing or preventing malaria, began to eventually show that it had other side effects. You see, this pesticide began spilling into the waterways, and bald eagles, a fish eagle, eagles that eat primarily fish, was one of the many species of bird of prey to be affected by it. Oh, because the fish were dying? No. Oh, because the eagles would eat the fish and then they would die? No again. Actually, what was happening is that the DDT was making the eagles' eggs so brittle after they would eat the contaminated fish that the eggs couldn't hatch and then crack in the nest at some point before they ever hatched. This apparently got so bad that by the mid-1970s, there were only about 417 nesting pairs in the entire country. In other words, right around the time that we should have been celebrating our nation's bicentennial, we were in the process of eliminating the very bird that is on the seal of the United States of America. That being the case, they were one of the first species to be protected by the Endangered Species Act in 1978. And today, the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act helps protect them. So how did the comeback happen exactly? Well, they banned DDT, made it illegal to kill them, and began trying to hatch eggs in human care, hand-raising the young until they could be dropped off with a current nesting pair. What is interesting is that the DDT didn't kill the eagles themselves, I don't think, but don't quote me on that. So that left a window of time to capitalize on the nesting pairs that remained. So did that end up working out? Well, it took a while, but today the evidence is clear. To name just a couple, Georgia went from having no nests to now having over hundreds of nests. And Ohio, where the Columbus Zoo is located, went from having as few as 4 nests in the late 1970s to now having, well, follow this progression. In 1999, 50 nests were found in the state. In 2007, 164 nests were found. In 2012, 281 nests were found, and that was enough to have them removed from the endangered species list. After only a slight increase from 2012 to 2018, it was kind of assumed that the population had stabilized, but then the jump continued. Well, in 2018, only 286 nests were found, so only a 5-nest increase. But in 2019, 346 nests were found, a 22% increase. And in those nests, 497 young were found. At that point, management became pretty minimal, and basically all that was done was just helping injured birds and the enforcing of state and federal laws. But then, get this, a 2020 survey done by the ODNR, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, took 2,500 inputs from the public and confirmed that 707 nests were found in the state of Ohio, which included 85 of the 88 counties. And with the average number of eagles that are born in any given nest, it's estimated that 1,000 eaglets will be born in 2021. And so this jump in recent years certainly seemed to indicate that there was plenty of room for growth, but whether it will stabilize again anytime soon, only time will tell. Today, more than 70,000 nesting pairs are estimated to be across the entire country, which, while that is certainly down from the 100,000 possibly estimated pairs back in the late 1800s, that's certainly way up from only 400 and some odd ones back in the 1970s. And even with that, most birds that are in zoos are only ones that are injured and can't really be re-released into the wild. And you can even tell that by noticing that some zoos don't even have a net over top of the enclosure to keep them in. Cincinnati Zoo and the Central Florida Zoo are a couple of ones that I can think of off the top of my head, but I trust that there are many more. So I don't know if you've noticed the eagle population around you ever. I actually had an eagle nest about a mile from my house before I moved recently, and we would see them from time to time, which was a pretty cool thing. But one thing's for sure, whether you're noticing them or not, there are definitely a lot more out there today because of some efforts that have been made. But anyway, I hope you found the details of at least some of their backstory and their status in the wild at least somewhat interesting. That is obviously obviously far from all of the details, and I am certainly far from an expert on the entire matter, but that is at least some of the details that I've been able to piece together from stuff here at the zoo, the ODNR website, and other websites throughout the years, and then some of this stuff really currently. So I hope you found it interesting, and I personally think that it qualifies as a great comeback story for a majestic and iconic symbol of our country, and I'm personally glad that there's a lot more out there now. Meanwhile, if you've made it this far, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. We've got lots more content, not necessarily everything quite so information heavy, usually a little more chill, a little more relaxed, and escape as it were. Otherwise, we'll catch you next time on Escape to the Zoo.